Well, hello and welcome. Welcome to another episode of Talk Leadership with Cedrick. You know, everybody needs a little TLC. And I am Cedrick LaFleur, your host. I'm excited to be here with you today. We have another dynamic guest with us. You know, Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. You know, our guiding leadership principle is the law of buy-in, which says people buy into the leader, then the vision. You know, Mahatma Gandhi spent decades teaching others how to gain their freedom through peaceful efforts and nonviolence. Eventually, the people of India bought into his vision and were able to and help him able to carry out that dream. Now, the lesson is people don't buy into what you do, they buy into why you do it. So people will gravitate to leaders before the dream. And you know, the boss himself, Bruce Springsteen, said, "A time comes when you need to stop waiting for the man or woman you want to become and just start being the man or woman you want to be." Now, tonight we have a young man on the show with us who has been being the person he wants to be for a long time. He's a dynamic leader, and I'm excited to have him on the show tonight. Now, you know, I like to do a proper introduction of our guests. So let me say hello, Andy.
Hey, Cedric, and hey to your viewers. It's great to be with you.
Well,
Thanks for
awesome.
having
Well,
me.
thank you. We're excited to have you here. So, Andy Hall is our guest. And let me tell you a little bit about Andy Hall. I'm going to start off with his personal statement. It says, "I love to make a difference and add value to those who I spend time with. I do all I can to empower transformational change, motivating individuals, teams, and organizations toward action and high performance, inciting a passion to define and achieve purpose and deliver outstanding results." Now, Andy, before becoming a executive coach in 2013, Andy had 30 years of operational and senior leadership experience in leading retail and leisure organizations in both the UK and the United States. Andy has led multiple large-scale commercial teams for William Hill, Curious PC World, and W.H. Smith. Andy relocated to the U.S. in 2001 as a regional vice president for W.H. Smith and led the team who delivered increased profits. That's always a good thing. Increased profits and reduced costs against the backdrop of 9/11. Now, since leaving the world of corporate, Andy founded AHC, providing coaching and training for individuals and teams. He's identified coaching as a key area of focus in his leadership role for many years and having experienced firsthand positive impact that coaching had on those he worked with as well as himself. So he formally qualifies as a coach with the International Coaching Federation, ICF, and since then has been coaching leaders around the globe um, in his time. Now, Andy has a wide breadth of experience and knowledge, and let me just highlight a few of those things. As a Myers and Briggs Step 1 and 2 practitioner, he facilitated Step 1 workshops for numerous organizations. He facilitated 3-day senior leadership workshops for the German financial services company based in the UK. He facilitated workshops leading other leaders in China, Japanese car manufacturer. He's facilitated half-day workshops in delegating skills, influencing skills, quality conversations, leading in ambiguity, giving feedback, objection setting. So I share this with you folks to let you know that the guy we have here tonight has a wide breadth of experience and knowledge. So let's have a great conversation. If you have any questions, make sure you put them in the chat. and we'll make sure that we get some responses for you. So I'm looking forward to having Andy on the show tonight. That's a wonderful resume you have.
Thank you, Cedric. Thank you again to you and your viewers for giving me this opportunity to spend time with you. And I know what a dynamic leader you are, and the guests you've had on this show before, and the viewers that you have tuning in. So I'm really blessed and honored. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, I talked about I went over some of the parts of your resume,
Yeah.
but our audience like to hear sometimes directly from you
Yeah.
what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, it was really interesting, Cedric. And obviously, for the benefit of your viewers, I don't want to make sure they have the long version, but the shortened version was I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left school, and school didn't really agree with me too much, and they couldn't wait to see the back of me. I wasn't quite in one of our mentors' capacity of a high school dropout, but I wasn't too far behind. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. My father spent 25 years as a police officer, so I thought I might have wanted to do that, but I wasn't old enough at the time to go and get in the police force here in the UK. So I went and had to get a job. That was the only criteria the father gave me in terms of, you're going to stay living here, you need to go and earn some money. And I found myself working in a shop, a store, as we call it here in the UK. And that store, that shop was WH Smith. When I was 18 years of age, they put me in this program that was effectively a program where the government of the day was trying to artificially lower the unemployment statistics, and they did that in a high unemployment space by giving companies money. In my case, £25 per week, $30, $30.
Wow.
To actually not be in the statistics and go and get a job. But ironically, it was that job that I think really started to ignite my passion. I think probably when I look back around, being around people, because back in those days in stores, there was no internet, and, there was quite a big team in a retail store. And we had a big customer focus, obviously, as well. It's my first opportunity of being around people and customers. And I just was naturally, I think, really good at it. I don't think too much about that journey, too much about how I progressed by perhaps just working hard and being naturally me. But I stayed with that company 22 years. I went all the way through the various different layers in the organization: assistant manager, small store manager, large store manager, doing a training and development role for 4 years, which was really, really exciting at the time. Then I navigated into what the company over here at the time called travel retail. So I found myself accidentally working in airports. I hadn't traveled too much at the time, but I got a real bug for operating in that retail travel environment in airports, and loved it. Became airports area manager for that company after 2 years. And now we're in terms of the timeline you brought us up to speed with. I did that area manager's role for 4 years. Absolutely loved and adored it, but I was aware the company I was in would probably tap you on the shoulder after about 4 years and say, "Hey, sunshine, you've got to move. You've been in this job long enough." And I didn't really want that to happen. I felt as if I had the best leadership job in the world. I certainly did in the company, for sure.
Yeah.
And I discovered by accident, as you know, I was at a company conference one day, and I heard the US operational president speak at our conference about their business in the United States, which I didn't have any awareness of whatsoever. And what he described was like what we had in the UK. And I just heard him on the stage and thought, that's what I want to go and do. I've got the best job that I could possibly love here in the UK. What if I could do that somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, somewhere else was the United States. And he came off the stage, and at the bottom of the steps was yours truly waiting to shake his hand. And I gave him a quick 30-second resume, and he gave me his business card. And about 9 months later, through a number of circumstances, I found myself living and working in the US for the company. Around the time of literally, I landed in the US in Atlanta, in Georgia. Atlanta's I call my second home now. Even though I am back in the UK. I landed in Atlanta at Hartsfield 2 weeks after 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And was faced obviously with the United States that was new to me, but everybody I was talking to at the time, it was a new United States to customers and people that I was working with as well. So that was the first part of my leadership journey.
Wow. Well, you stayed with that company for a long time. I'm assuming you also moved up from 25 pounds.
I did. I did. Yes, and I can. The person that I credit for giving me the opportunity in the United States was one of my first inspirational leaders, a guy called Martin Longden, who lives ironically only 5 miles from me right now. He's in the next village. He's retired now, but he was a Brit who'd also been asked to go to the United States about 9 months before to be in that role. And he rang me one day and said, Andy, look, I know you've got a passion to come out here. You know that I'm going now, don't you? And I said, yes. And he said, look, I'm sure we can make something happen. He'd been out there about 4 or 5 weeks and he rang me and he said, I've got the opportunity. And this is where, your stage time story comes from me, because he says to me, what are you doing at the weekend? I said, nothing. He said, you need to get out here and see me. And I said, well, okay, where's that? And he said, well, I'm store visiting this week. I'm in LA. And he said, we're going to have dinner. And he said, we're having dinner in LA on Saturday night. If you can get here. It's like, well, okay. So that's a 12-hour plane ride from here, not the 8 to Atlanta. And anyway, long story short, again, for your viewers, I'm sitting having dinner with Martin, and Martin says to me, Andy, he said, the job comes with an offer of $80,000 per year. And I quickly did the maths, and it was quite easy for me, which is just as well, because I wasn't that good at school, as I alluded to. And I quickly worked out that I said, Martin, if you made it 90,000, that effectively doubles my salary, because I'm on £45,000 at home. If you could make it $90,000, and I hadn't finished, and he just held out his hand and he said, you got a deal. He said, you coming then, all right? And I went, yep, you got a deal. I'm coming. So we shook on it in dinner in a hotel in LAX on a Saturday night.
Wow.
That was my movement from £25 a week to $90,000 a year, which I guess would have been, I don't know, probably about 55, 60,000 at the time.
Yes. Wow. Well, that's awesome. Well, one of the lessons in there, folks, that I want you to pick up is Andy didn't just take the first offer. He countered, right? So think about that in your business, entrepreneurs, right? When you are proposing something and someone proposed something back at you, you have to be prepared. You got to be thinking ahead, right? So, Andy, people buy from people they know, like, and trust, right? So tell the audience something interesting or fun about you so they get to know, like, and trust you.
Well, you guys over in the United States call your football, right? Well, in the UK, we call our football as well, but we don't pick it up and run with it. We use our feet. You guys call it soccer. I'm just jesting with you, right? I was a huge soccer fan from all the way through my school. In fact, that's probably why I was pretty much thrown out, because I was kicking a ball around instead of studying. So my favorite soccer team is relatively well known around the world, which is called Manchester United. Relatively big team in the UK, but we were much bigger 10 years ago in terms of success. So I was a season ticket holder for Manchester United, going to all of their home games for, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years. So I was a soccer nut. I'm a Manchester United nut. Not so much these days, because they're not doing quite so well these days. And that being a soccer nut was, I was from the south of the UK, which is a running joke with soccer fans in the UK anyway. If you're a Manchester United fan, you always come from the south, bearing in mind Manchester's in the north. So it was a hike for me as well. But I was there on the first night that we'd won our Premier League championship for the first time for 26 years. All the way back in 1992-93. So the most successful soccer manager of all time, Sir Alex Ferguson, who retired about 5 or 6 years ago now. It was in his early days as our manager, and he brought success back to Manchester United after about 26 years. So I'm a huge Manchester United fan. Normally behind on my wall, you'd see some pictures. Signed shirts hanging, but I thought it probably might be right to take them down for for your podcast, Cedrick. So I'm a soccer nut. I love it passionately, and I've spent lots of money and thousands of miles on the road following them. I have actually seen them play a preseason friendly in is it the Big House in Michigan? They came over and
Yes.
there's a university in Michigan where
Yes.
100,000 seater stadium.
Yes, the University of Michigan Stadium is huge.
I saw them play a preseason friendly there against Real Madrid about 10 years ago, the Spanish club. So that's how crazy I am. But I could combine two loves there, with one which is the United States and the other was soccer.
Soccer, okay. Well, so that it's amazing, but the love that you have for soccer is the same love that a lot of Americans have for football, and they travel all over to see them.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us, Andy, what's your business niche?
Well, I love talking about all things leadership, for sure, which is why it's great to be on your Leadership Institute. And I had in that 30-year corporate career many leadership lessons, which I don't think I was really receiving at the time, but I've subsequently drawn on them afterwards. So leadership is a passion that I love talking about and teaching about. But if I was to dive into a deeper niche, as you guys would say in the US, it would have to be coaching. I spend all of my time right at this moment in time, and certainly have during COVID and pre-pandemic coaching one-to-one. And I mean genuine pure coaching. I mean, I went and got myself accredited to be a coach when I left the corporate space 9 years ago. I'm passionate about my coaching. I believe that I can bring a mentoring aspect to it when required with my leadership and business background. So isn't it a coincidence that I spend most of my time coaching, business leaders or entrepreneurs or people that are early in their leadership journey? Because that's probably the other passion that I do have. If I can find a way of working with emerging leaders or young leaders, that people are in their early stage of trying to define their leadership career, an opportunity to coach one-to-one or work with a group of people like that, really does tick a huge box in terms of feeling like I can add value and bring and give something back. I don't think there's anything more passionate than finding someone that's early in their leadership journey, curious and keen to understand and to do more and to find out more, and to give me an opportunity to coach with those types of people. I can always put my head on the pillow after having at least one of those in my day and think, that was a great day. So coaching, leadership, and if I could target market people, emerging leaders, young leaders, gives me a real buzz.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. And, we have a lot of younger entrepreneurs who listen and tune into the show. They're trying to make their way in the leadership development space, training, coaching, mentoring, doing workshops and things like this. So, and you're an experienced coach, one that's a certified coach. Help us understand, Andy, and unpack the difference between a person who is a coach versus someone who's like training, or like you said earlier, mentoring, right? Because there's a big difference, right? And
there is a big difference, and understandably, it's, I think for most people, it's understandably easily misunderstood. And if we go back to what we were just talking about a few moments ago about sport, I think that's where most people's misconception comes from. Because certainly here in the UK, we talk about soccer coaches. Every soccer team has got a coach that runs the team. And if you watch that soccer coach 9 times out of 10 at a game on a Saturday or Sunday and watch what that coach is doing, he or she will be running up and down in their technical area, screaming instructions, right? This is what to do. Pass it here. Move there. Position yourself here. Take the throw in like that. And it's like, well, you and I know, and probably a few others of your viewers know, that's not coaching. That's more managing, or that's more training. So if you were distinct about it, what does mentoring do? Mentoring comes from a place of expertise. I always think that's a really good place to start from. So,
Right.
am I able to mentor business leaders? Am I able to mentor people around leadership? The answer to that, I always believe, is yes, because I've been there and I've done it, and I've got some experience of it that I could share with you, Cedric. Could I mentor a brain surgeon? I would argue that I couldn't, because I have no experience of it. And if you were about to experience brain surgery and you heard that they were being mentored by Andy Hall, I'd say change your brain surgeon pretty quickly, because you wouldn't want Andy mentoring. But could you or I, Cedric, coach a brain surgeon? And the answer to that is absolutely yes, we could, because a coach won't come from that place of expertise. They'll come from that place of curiosity, and they'll come from that basis of through curiosity of asking questions. So, can you and I, as accredited or qualified coach a brain surgeon? Absolutely, we can, because all we'll do is we'll ask questions. We'll ask curiosity-based questions, and those questions will be designed to have the brain surgeon or whatever profession that you're in to go within themselves and answer those questions. And that's why I think really the distinction between coaching and mentoring and subsequently training. Again, you might have some coaches that are standing up in the front of the room sharing leadership techniques.
Right.
All absolutely really important, but are they coaching from the front of the room, or are they training from the front of the room? I'd argue they're teaching or they're training, because they're passing some degree of expertise, some knowledge onto the people in the room. Right. Now, if they started asking a few curiosity-based questions around what they're teaching, then could they be coaching and training at the same time? Yes, they could. But yeah, awesome. Having come from the Christian Simpson school of coaching, I'm probably one step down from his purist coaching philosophy. But we come from that purist perspective, because I think we see the results, Cedric. That's why I think.
Right. Well, thanks for clarifying that, and hopefully that helps someone out in the audience as well, as you continue to grow and develop into your own. So, if you had to relive one day from the past, Andy, what would that be and why?
I think I'd have to take us back to that moment I think I was describing to you in May 1993, where I was at the Theatre of Dreams. That's what United's home ground is called, at Old Trafford in Manchester. I was there on a Wednesday night when Manchester United had not won a league title, your equivalent of your Super Bowl, for 26 years. And many managers had been fired trying. And Sir Alex Ferguson, after being there 3 or 4 years, brought home our first championship that night. And I was in a crowd of about 67,000. And just with the sheer ecstasy and passion of what would have been 95% of the supporters in the ground, not only winning that night, our final league game of the season, but experiencing the exhilaration that comes with overcoming, I guess, adversity that had been with our club for so long. So there was just something really special that, we went on to win the league many times after that subsequently year in the 90s. And I was there for a number of those, but it never quite felt as good. You could never quite capture that same emotion that was, a whole city, just experiencing an outpouring of success for the first time when they'd suffered for so long. I mean, when I say suffered, I mean in a sporting context, right? Because, you and I know that there's a lot more suffering going on in the world than that right now. But from the sporting context, you imagine, your favorite NFL team or college team and not having won a championship for over 20 years, and then you go and win one, having never given up perhaps any hope that you might. It was a really, really exhilarating evening, and I've still got photographs of that evening. And when you see the grainy video clips now of that night, they're not quite black and white, but they're definitely grainy now.
Grainy.
Yeah, I can still put myself back in that stadium.
Wow. Well, yeah, that's all. That's always an awesome feeling. I'm a huge Pittsburgh Steelers
Oh yeah,
fan for
yeah.
in NFL football, and we win a lot. So I get those feelings, but I know that there are some fans out there that their team have
Mm.
those long droughts,
Mm.
and some are still having long droughts. I'm not going to mention any teams out there for you watching. So, Andy, leaders come in all different types of packages with different strengths, right? So, what strengths do you feel are important for successful leaders to have?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Um, I think the first thing that springs to mind, Cedric, I think is I want to say empathy. But how do you unpack empathy? I think that in my experience, and I had role models that I learned a lot from throughout my career. Um, how that transpired for me, and I subsequently tried to pick this ball up and run with it as I became more senior in my career. It was about this passion for your team. It was about your passion for your people. It was
Mhm.
about caring and putting them first. Um, I developed, I think, a reputation towards the end of my career of being a really good team builder, a really good creator of great teams. Um, and it's no good creating those teams, of course, if they can't go and deliver the result. Um, and I know there's probably many a leader out there that's been successful in the past with a dictatorial, maybe autocratic approach to leading. Um, I just think that only takes you so far. I on the bottom of my emails, I really buy into the maximize your potential way of thinking, and I think that you can really maximize your potential as a team if you really care passionate about your people. And what I mean by that is not only being passionate about their own personal growth and their own personal development and their own personal goals, but caring enough to when you might meet with them once a month to know the child's name, or to know the wife's name, or to get curious about the vacation they've just been on. So I think starting off with empathy for me, and creating that collaborative force, and creating an empowered team that has got this what I call this freedom within a framework. You set the framework and the parameters of how your team can go out and behave and lead, and then just encourage them and let them go within that framework. I think you'll always be surprised at the results. Do you make a mistake along the way? For sure. But I've always believed again that, in terms of success, if we're not making a few mistakes along the way, we're perhaps not learning and we're not growing. And we need to make some of those mistakes, and subsequently we need to learn from them and not make them again, for sure. But yeah, empathy for starting with, collaborative approach. Empowerment's a bit of a cliche word, but I believe in it. Giving that freedom of your team to go and deliver in the way that they believe is right. And I think what comes even before that, creating a clarity of purpose. What's the vision? Again, I found huge success with that towards the end of my career in corporate. How do you align your team behind the vision of the organization, and how do you set yourself up to succeed, to play your part in that? And I think if you've got a leader in an organization that gives you a real clear vision, that allows you to create a vision that buys into that and delivers that. That was when I was at my real best. I know I was at my worst when I was working for a leader that just told me what to do and wasn't interested in my view or my input. And I had some challenging experiences of that in my retail career, for sure. And I didn't know what I knew now then, but I now know why I was struggling back in those days for people that didn't give me that freedom.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and when you come to realize that, that's when transformation really happens within you, because then you can say, okay, I'm gonna take myself to a different level, and then I'm going to also, all those things that happened to me that I didn't like, I'm going to eliminate those, take
Yeah.
all the good things, and transform my team now. Yeah.
And is it interesting that I don't think you need any degrees in education to do that. And I would say that never having had one and not knowing how to spell university. But that's exactly all I did throughout the course of my career, I think, Cedric. Looked up to leaders that I could see were getting great results and doing it in what appeared to be the right way. And I think I can replicate that. I can go copy that. I can go and tap into what that person's doing and get curious. And on the flip side of that, I think, again, some of my very early poor leadership lessons were experienced and then thought, that doesn't look like it works for me. So I'm not going to do that. And certainly as a young man in my 20s and my 30s, that was really my philosophy. Copy what I think works and don't copy what doesn't.
It seems very simple, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And of course, with all the leaders listening into your institute here, Cedric, I wouldn't want to devalue all of the things that go behind that. But sometimes I think we can make things a little bit too complicated in the world of leadership. And, I just saw what worked and copied it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you could choose only one long-term goal, Andy, either to own a house or to travel the world, which one would you choose?
Having been blessed to actually now own my own home, we managed to get mortgage free a couple of years ago. I think it's probably then easy for me to say, for sure, travel the world. Because you and I know we were in the room together only a few days ago over in the United States. I love to travel, and I've traveled extensively, but I know there's so many parts of the world that I would still love to see. But if you said to me, if I had to sacrifice one for the other, I think for sure I still would continue to explore the world and be blessed to meet the people that I've met so far around the world and go and meet people that I haven't from different walks of background. So I love to travel. If I can eat as I'm going around the world as well and eating some great restaurants, that ticks the second box.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes it even better.
Yeah.
So, Andy, we have a segment on the show that we call Would You Rather?
Okay.
Right? So we're going to play a little round of Would You Rather, all right?
Yeah.
Would you rather to have a sports stadium named after you or have a university named after you?
Oh, for sure, a university, without a doubt. Yeah.
University. All right.
Yeah.
And audience, remember, you can always put your answer in the comments and so we'll see what you have to say. All right. So would you rather have free Apple products forever or free Wi-Fi wherever you go?
Oh my gosh. It's got to be. I mean, you've got to be free Wi-Fi, right? I can't imagine not being able to jump on my emails and when I need to. As much as I'm an Apple freak for sure.
Yeah.
If I obviously can't say both. Can I do it on an Apple device? But clearly not.
Yeah. Would you rather own your own private island or have your own private jet?
My own private island.
Island. All right.
Yeah.
Would you rather be able to read minds or be able to travel at light speed?
Well, read minds has got to be really, really interesting. Yeah, read minds.
Yes. All right.
Think of a few I'd like to read. Oh, that explains it, right? Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, would you rather have free gas for 25 years or have your dream car?
My dream car. Yeah,
Your
my dream car. Yeah.
Yeah. In this economy, I'm gonna have to take the gas because the price.
I get that. Even you guys are suffering right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Would you rather continue on with your life or restart your life?
Oh gosh. No, I think I'd like to continue on with my life, knowing the lessons that I've learned and applying those.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And along this whole life journey, there's only a few more questions, but would you rather meet your great grandparents or your great grandchildren?
Oh, my great grandparents for sure. Yeah.
Great
Yeah. My
grandparents.
great grandparents. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather have more money or more time?
More time. Yeah, definitely more time. Yeah, for sure.
More time. All right. Two more. Would you rather be stuck on an elevator or stuck on a ski lift?
Yeah, I think stuck on a ski lift. I think the view would be better.
See, I'm afraid of heights, so I don't. An elevator, I could be on the 21st floor, but I'll think I'm on the first floor, right?
You're right.
With the ski lift, I'll know I'm 21 stories high.
The only trouble is I can't ski, Cedric, so I don't know what I'd be doing up there in the first place, but I can imagine the view's beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Last question here. So, would you rather have $1 million in Amazon gift cards or $100,000 in real money?
No, for sure, the gift cards, for sure. If I look at my credit card statement every month, it says Amazon, 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 Amazon. That's got to be a benefit, I would have thought.
Exactly. That's what I always say too. And one of my guests one time, Andy, kind of caught me off guard because I was thinking of myself with these gift cards, but he said, well, what I would do is I'd get the $1 million in Amazon gift cards, and then I would give them out to the homeless. And I was like, see,
for sure. Yeah,
man,
sure.
that's a
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So thank you for playing that round of Would You Rather. So, if you could share with our audience of entrepreneurs, and some are doing well, but some struggle, right?
Yeah.
And if you could share with them, I'm going to give you a scenario. Is an entrepreneur who's tuning in right now, and he says, "Man, Andy is doing this, and he's living his dream, but my business is not working so well."
Yeah.
And I think I might want to just quit and give up. So if you could speak into that person and give that person some advice, what would you tell them?
I would, if it was their dream and they were passionate about it and it fitted with their purpose, I'd say hang in there. I'd say, tap into the persistency that we all need when things don't work out the way that you'd want them to work out, because I'm sure there would have been lessons thus far that they could learn from. And then I think I would say go and get yourself around, if you're not already, like-minded people, whether that be people on a show like yours, Cedric, or whether that be a mastermind group. If they could go and get themselves into a mastermind group, I know personally from the power of that, the impact that had on me. And then, of course, you'd expect me to say, go and get yourself a mentor or a coach, because I think when you're up against it and you're an entrepreneur, and probably you might be really a solopreneur rather than an entrepreneur, and certainly that's what I am. I work for myself. Sometimes, depending on your personality, and my personality in the world of disc, and I'm sure your viewers will know what I'm talking about there, is I'm a high I, so I need to be around people. That's where I spent all of my corporate career, around people. That was always going to be one of the challenges of being a solopreneur. Where do you find your team when you need a team? And that's where I found my team. I found my team, originally in the John Maxwell team. And that took me to Paul Martinelli and Christian Simpson, and they've coached and they've mentored me. And now I'm in this empowered living team, and I'm in a mastermind group. And I'm a solopreneur. I'm sitting here talking to you from the UK in my study, and there's no other team for a few miles around. But I know that probably within seconds of hanging up on this show with you, if I was stuck, I know I've got contacts in my phone that I could pick up the phone to and jump on a Zoom call, whether that be my coach or whether that be my mentor or someone from my mastermind group. And they would help me take the next step. And I think that's probably often all we probably need to know. We sometimes get stuck, I think, in thinking, what's the 50th or the 60th thing I've got to do? And that can become overwhelming.
Right.
But I think if you can work with someone who's part of your inner circle and help work out what's the next step you've got to take, knowing that you'll always probably know it yourself, and you just probably want some help or some support or some confidence of getting to that decision. That's what's got me through, for sure. And I think anybody that's a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, doesn't think that there's going to be some challenging or difficult times or hasn't come across them yet. They will, for sure.
Sure.
And that's, I think, the way to always overcome them is, who's in your inner circle, who's the people that you can pick up the phone to, or jump on send a WhatsApp message. And they're often not, in my experience, they're not back in that corporate life where you came from.
Right.
That was a hard lesson that I learned in my first couple of years before I had the John Maxwell team and all of the friends and colleagues I made from that. When I made that leap from corporate to solopreneur, I thought many of my corporate ex-colleagues would be friends or were friends and would help and support. But I quickly realized the king was dead. Long live the king. I wasn't important anymore. There was somebody else who was the boss that was more important. And when I reached out, they weren't around. So subsequently, I had to go and create this new inner circle. And that's been really, really powerful. So yeah, just stick with it, be persistent, follow that path and follow that dream, and find out who you can help to support you take that next step.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for that advice. I absolutely love that. And one of the things you said is, hey, you were talking about corporate, right? That you found out that those people really weren't in your inner circle here to help you when you needed it, right? Well, that happens also, folks. I want you to understand that it happens also with family and maybe some people you think are your close friends. When you really need them, they may not be there for you. So you have to really understand that. And like Andy said, surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who are trying to do some of the same things you're doing. You can help them someday. Someday they're going to be able to help you, right? And that brings us, Andy, to a group that we're a part of. We are in the Empowered Living community. We are one of the six-figure mentors.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed being a part of the six-figure mentorship program. So when Paul came and asked you about this and to be one of the six-figure mentors, what made you decide to say yes?
It was an easy yes for me, Cedrick, because this was about giving. It is not. This is for me about giving back. This is an opportunity for me to tithe some of my time back into, in some cases, our community, in some cases to people that we might not know yet. This is an opportunity to share some of my experience and some of my journey with someone that might need it, and that's why it was such an easy yes. When Paul said, and we're all going to be doing it for free, it was like, this was just like, sign me up. And I mean that genuinely. And when you've actually, I think you've hosted your second, now, Cedrick, your second call, when you've got those people that have sacrificed their time to listen to us. It might be free to us, but I don't expect it sometimes to be free to the person who's listening in. They have to consciously and intentionally tune in to listen and sacrifice some of their time, either on a Saturday morning or late on a Tuesday evening, to listen to you and I. And I don't take that lightly. I really want to give something back to that listener, to that person that's tuned in. So that's why I think it's such a great community. The 25 or 30 of us that are doing that. This is an opportunity for Empowered Living to give something back to people that need it. We're in tough times again right now. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're still trying to figure out what it is that you do, whether you're in a corporate space, and I can imagine that many corporate spaces right now are tough places to be with, not getting the results that perhaps they would like. In what's turning into a difficult economy. So, yeah, that was why it was an easy yes. I was going to be surrounded by people like you, Cedrick, and people that I could learn from that are further down the road from me. But also, I just wanted to give something back. And that's what's great about Paul Martinelli and the Empowered Living community. We're always trying to find ways of doing that. And that's why I love being part of that family.
Absolutely. And one of the things you said, I want to make sure the audience picked up on, is for this six-figure mentorship program, you're going to get mentorship from people who are operating at a high level in their business. So they're not talking theory, They're going to really be talking practical solutions that could help you and work in your business to help you help your customers. And the beauty of it, Andy said it, it's all for no charge, right? We're not going to be trying to sell you anything. We're just going to be pouring into you, giving you some things, and you get to ask any question you want to ask. Because as a part of this 2-hour call, only a little bit, maybe 30 minutes of the show, of the call, will we be teaching. Then we want to let you ask any question you want to ask that's going to help you in your business, right? And we have over 25 different people that are on these calls. Andy, when's your next call coming up?
My next call, I think, is in July, Cedrick. I think.
Okay.
Because I think, I'm pretty sure I'm a little way out. I think until might even be August.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking that, folks, is you still have an opportunity to talk directly with Andy. And
30th of July.
July 30th, right?
Yes.
So put that on your calendar, folks. And the calls happen every Tuesday at 7 p.m. At Tuesdays at 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern times at 7 to 9 Central. And then Saturday mornings from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern time or 7 to 9 Central time. So Tuesdays and Saturdays is pretty simple. Tuesdays and Saturdays. And guess what? The time frames are the same. 8 to 10, just Tuesday nights, 8 to 10, Saturday morning. So make sure you tune in to those six-figure mentorship calls. Now, Andy, for you, if you had to pick one thing that you say, hey, man, here's what I get from being a mentor in this program, what would that be?
I think again it fits in with that. How do I give something back to this community that's given me so much, and it has given me so much joy, so much passion in the last couple of years since it's been formed. It helps me give something back to Paul Martinelli, who's is hugely responsible for being where I am today. I've spent a lot of time in and around Paul, particularly in this last couple of years, and he has just poured into me. And in some cases I've invested in that, but more often than not, I haven't. So let's get really clear about that as well. He's given me lots of his time, and he's given me tons of opportunities. So it's an opportunity for me to say thank you to our community, and thank you to Paul Martinelli for all he's given me, and how he's invested in me and trusted me in the last few years. And I'm so grateful for that. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, Cedrick, for sure, if it wasn't for Paul.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about Paul for a few minutes here, Andy, because talking about a guy that knows how to pick himself up from a low point and go to another level. I mean, he's that guy, right? Talking about someone who's be able to help you understand how to overcome challenges. He's that guy. Talking about someone who's able to show you how to mentor others and help others and lift other people up. He's that guy, right? And I've seen countless times where he's giving back and giving to others. Where he really doesn't have to, right?
No, for sure. He doesn't need to tithe his time, and he doesn't need to tithe his money, and he does both excessively. And he is in my opinion, he is the world's best at encouraging all of us to, as he says on his signature, hold your image.
Yes.
And what does he mean by holding your image? He means that you have to hold this positive image of yourself, of doing the thing and being the thing. And if you've ever jumped on a call with Paul and felt sorry for yourself that things weren't, particularly going your way, and you were down on yourself, and you were, out of luck, and you were showering him with your negative beliefs. Where if he allows you to finish, which I suspect he probably won't, he'll call time out on you and call your BS, your belief systems, and just assassinate those negative beliefs, and you'll come off that call, again, glad that you went on it, because there was somebody else that you could turn to in your inner circle where you were struggling a little bit and you didn't think that you were good enough or you were worthy enough. And Paul will sort you out for sure.
Yes,
He'll assassinate those negative beliefs for sure.
Absolutely. So, folks, jump on those six-figure mentorship calls. Andy and I love being a part of the program and love pouring into you. So jump on, and you can go and check out. I did a call on this past Saturday. It was called Pricing for Profitability. You can listen to that replay. It's all helping you understand how to price a product, helping you understand how to calculate profit and profit margin. I gave you access to some calculator tools that can automatically calculate that for you. And then I gave you a template for pricing, right, that you can use. I know a lot of people in our space struggle with, what should my price be? How should I price this or that, right?
Yeah, sure.
So awesome. Well, go take a look at that. And thank you, Andy, for that. So, Andy, you've had a lot of success in your career. Well, we've, and I have as well, but we've all also failed from time to time, right?
Sure.
So, if you tell us about one failure that you've had and the lesson that you learned from that failure.
Gosh, where do I start? If I think back to my corporate career, when I started out, if I think about relatively late in my corporate career, and I think about being airports area manager. I was airports area manager for 4 years, and that was my first what we would call over here in the UK. I don't know whether the term's used in the US, but field management. So I was leading store teams rather than being a manager of a store. So it was my first time of more significant influence, I guess. And the difficulty with that on reflection was I became airports area manager from being an airport manager. So I managed the North Terminal store in Gatwick, which is the second biggest airport here in the UK. And I subsequently applied for and became airports area manager. So it almost felt like at the last managers meeting, I was sitting in the room listening to the area manager talk and communicate to us, and the next managers meeting, I was leading it. So I was at the front of the room. And I don't think I was humble enough in those early days, Cedrick, to recognize where I came from. I almost felt like, I put the area manager's name badge on. And I made the mistake of perhaps trying to be something that I wasn't. I think I made the mistake in those first few months of thinking, because I now was the area manager, I had all the answers and I knew all the answers. And I had to communicate with a degree of confidence that I had all the answers. And after about 3 months, I was taken aside by our most senior store manager, a wonderful guy called Martin Uzzell. And Martin managed Heathrow Terminal 1 for WH Smith. And Martin was one of my store managers. Martin was the manager of Heathrow Terminal 1 when I arrived to be Gatwick manager. And when I was Gatwick manager, I was good enough in those days, or humble enough in those days, to say, hey, Martin, I'm new to airport retailing. Help me with that. But interesting enough, I didn't do that when I became his boss. And he took me aside to one day and he said, can I give you a piece of advice, Andy? And I said, yeah, Martin, of course you can. He said, Andy, remember where you came from. Remember how good you were when you were leading the team at Gatwick, and what got you to where you've got to now. And I said, why are you telling me that, Martin? He said, because I think you've forgotten. I think you've forgotten. You've become someone that you haven't, and I don't recognize him. And he said, I think you're trying too hard. You're trying to impress. Just because it says area manager now and not store manager. I think you need to know the answers. And he said, you didn't used to be like that. It was like, oh. And I was like, and my first thought, actually, I remember my first thought was like, who do you think you are, Martin? But it was a microsecond, I promise you, Cedric. And it was like, oh my gosh, I think I really needed to hear that. I really needed to hear that. And I changed my approach from that day. And actually, I went round and re-spoke to all of my team, and asked them their view about what I was doing right and what I wasn't doing so right. And I got some real home truths. And I think it had a significant impact. I don't think I would have made the leap to come into Atlanta and working in the United States, because can you imagine Andy Hall turning up in Atlanta, Georgia as the Brit, pretending he knew it all? And I can't imagine that going down too well with many
Right.
Americans and not many locals in Atlanta. So I think that lesson really served me well when I moved, not only from a positional change in my leadership, but a country and a culture change.
Thanks. Right.
And a country and a culture change that was grieving at the time as a result of 9/11 as well. So I think that lesson, probably 3 or 4 years earlier, really served me well when I came to live and work in your country.
Wow. I like what you just said, in my country, so that everybody knows. So, final question for you here, Andy. So, if there was a book that was written about you,
yeah,
what would the title be, and what would be said in the back of the book in the summary about you?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the title would be, and I thought into this earlier. I don't know whether this is quite right, but I wrote down, he always did what it took and more. He always did what it took and more. And I think that's probably because I came from this, and still sometimes have this limiting belief that you heard me start at the front of your show. I wasn't particularly educated.
Mm-hmm.
And I still carry that around a little bit today, in terms of, I failed at high school, as you guys would call it. So then, as a result of that, I always felt like I had to work that little bit harder, to maybe not overcome what other people thought of me. Although I think, again, in my early career, I felt a lot of that. So I was often around in my junior career around people that were university educated, and I remember carrying that challenge around with me. But when I learned from the great Les Brown that what other people think of you is none of your business, once I started to get a grasp of that, I felt more comfortable in that skin. But I think it would be, in terms of, he always did what it took and more. I mean, I think I would say I would always, in everything that I do today, I think I always want to go, that extra yard, that extra meter. And I think it comes from a place of, perhaps I'm not good enough, but I think it always serves me really well in terms of showing up into a place where I'm prepared to do what it takes. And I've learned more and more that I'm prepared to step outside my comfort zone, in a place that's sometimes not always easy to go for me, because I know that there's going to be some growth there for me, and some stretch. And even though I might be uncomfortable stepping into it and might be uncomfortable being in it, when I've come out of the experience and I reflect on it, I know that I'm probably going to be a more significant individual from going through that process. So I think it comes from that place of, feeling like I needed to overcome or work that little bit harder than perhaps some other people to be successful.
Wow. That is awesome. That would be a great book. So I just have to ask, when's the book coming out?
Do you know, I have no aspiration to write a book whatsoever. Do you know, and I think that fits into my personality, because let me rewind and take that back. So anybody that's listening to this right now should there's a cue here in terms of, I think I would like to see my book on the shelf of a bookseller's or on Amazon, but I know with my personality I'm not going to write it. So if someone wanted to come and interview me and listen to me and give me a draft of, I know probably a significant investment, and then give me a draft of what my book might look like, that would appeal. But I can't imagine with my personality type, which I think would be a bit different to yours, Cedric. I can see yourself applying yourself to that. I'd write probably a paragraph and want to be staring out the window pretty quickly afterwards, or going to find something else to do. So it would be the world's longest book it took to write, I'm sure.
Well, let me tell you this, Andy. I wrote my first book. It launched here in March.
Yes, of course.
Right now, for several years, people have been telling me I should write a book, and I said I have no desire to write a book. I wasn't interested in writing a book. Now, I've written this book. I set a goal that this year I'm gonna launch 3 books, and over the next 3 years, 10 books.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. So you'll be surprised what'll happen. One day you're gonna wake up and you're gonna say, Andy, I'm writing a book. And you're gonna catch that bug. So just be careful, folks. Just be careful, Andy.
I'm sure you've got some ghostwriters listening in that might want to help me.
Probably. Wow, this hour has gone by so quick. I truly enjoyed the conversation. I know that our audience enjoyed the lessons that they're getting. And folks, I would tell you, share this with someone else. Go back and listen to it. There are a lot of nuggets in Andy's message. I know you love his voice. I get it. But go listen to the nuggets that are there. All right. So again, Andy, thank you very much for being willing to come on the show. I truly appreciate it.
It's an absolute pleasure, Cedric. Thank you ever so much for giving me the opportunity, and thank you to your viewers for tuning in and listening to me. I so appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Awesome. And if our audience could want to reach out to you, where could they do that?
They can find me at my name, andyhallcoaching.com. That's where they can find me. That's my website. If they want to drop me an email, and I'd love to serve anyone with an email answer to an email question, that would be andy@andyhallcoaching.com. So either way, any of your viewers wanted to reach out with a question, please just drop me an email or go via my website, and I'd only be too pleased to interact with them.
Awesome. As again, folks, thank you guys for tuning in. As I always tell you, there's you can only be ordinary or extraordinary in your life. And the only difference between ordinary and extraordinary is extra. The only difference between winning and losing is belief. The only difference between hot water and boiling water is 1 degree. You see, at 211 degrees, water's hot. At 212 degrees, water boils. With boiling water comes steam. With steam, you can power a train. The only difference between a person reaching their full potential and not reaching their full potential is desire. So all you have to do, folks, is take that extra degree and become extraordinary. And as I always tell you, don't be, excuse me. All right. As I always tell you at the end of the show, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and don't be on the menu. Thank you. Good night.